Welcome to Logistics Unplugged. My name is Brian Blaylock, and I'm your host, and I'm happy to jump in today to all things logistics. So let's pull back the curtain, take a look under the hood, and have a great discussion. And I'm excited for today's first freight market update. This is our inaugural version. If you have enough of a Southern accent, that word can get very marbled. So anyway, I am beyond excited to have our special guest today, Ratty Velkov, our Senior Vice President of Carrier Sales and Strategy at Blue Grace Logistics. Ratty, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Brian. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. So we'll get into the freight market update in a little bit, but since all the listeners haven't experienced you in a while, Ratty, it's been a few years since you were on one of the shows, then we're gonna revisit and relearn who Ratty is. So Ratty, tell me a little bit about how you got into the industry, a little bit of your background, how you got here today.
Sure. I wish I had a fun story, but much like everybody else, right out of college, the only difference is I spent the first handful of years on the asset side. I didn't come straight into logistics or the truckload brokerage world. So I got to see how carrier networks are built, drivers are recruited, kind of see that side of the world, which has helped me with my career here, I would say, pretty significantly. And then I joined Blue Grace back in 2014 and have been here since.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ratty, I know I've worked with you for a long time and got to see you do some cool things over the years, and maybe we'll throw a few stories of some of those cool things in here today. But I want to talk about the freight market update, and I want to talk about the conditions sort of on the ground right now. So let's start by taking a look at what's the current state right now in the market. And I want to talk about some of the trends this month, since this is going to be a monthly update. And let's do it in terms of the volumes, the capacity, all of that. Just give me the whole weather report.
If I had to summarize the current freight market as it stands today, we're seeing demand is flat, pretty soft historically. Carrier networks have become extremely sensitive to disruption. Over the last 36 months or so, we've seen carriers exit the market in a meaningful way. So the way I would classify this isn't a classic tight market, but it's a fragile one where kind of your execution, timing matter more than ever before.
Yeah, and I think your answer is sort of touching on that already. But when we talk about the tonnage trends and what it actually means to be flat or down, what does it actually mean?
Sure. When tonnage is flat or down, it tells us that the system isn't being pulled by demand in the market. The change is how sensitive the network has become from a capacity standpoint. Even with soft volumes, short disruptions are currently creating outsized impacts. So soft demand used to mean a calm freight market. That's just not the reality anymore.
Yeah, and when you talk about calm, let's talk about the things that keep us from being calm. Disruption, right? That's a word we see a lot in our industry. Tell me a little bit about, sometimes you've seen how disruption that might be short-lived but can create some oversized cost or service impacts.
Yeah, I think the one that's on everybody's mind right now, the most recent one is the winter weather that we all just experienced and went through. There are several corridors that here at Blue Grace, we had lanes running smoothly. We had plenty of capacity for those corridors. And as the winter storms kind of rolled through, that put everything upside down. Some of the carriers just weren't positioning their equipment where we were used to. Availability wasn't there. Load to truck ratios spiked pretty meaningfully in some of those corridors. Again, nothing changed on the actual demand side. It was all about positioning and timing. So this is exactly what I mean by capacity is just very fragile right now.
Yeah, I guess when a storm keeps a driver in a particular city, that truck is not where it used to be. You're talking about a different decision from a different point. I'm sure backhaul becomes an issue again.
And you have a lot of carriers that just can't get unloaded, right? They have freight stuck on their trucks. Their facilities are closed. They can't get the freight off their equipment, and it just creates disruptions. Again, it just goes back to there's just not much slack in our network. So anytime there's a weather or a seasonal impact, you'll see that disruption jump up pretty significantly.
Yeah, and I have just a simple question to help me understand a little better. When we talk about this being a softer market, what is it that still drives cost to be a little higher in a softer market?
Even when demand's soft, what typically drives higher cost, again, is the capacity side. If capacity is exiting the market like it has been over the last 36 months, just due to the soft market environment, anytime that there's any type of disruption, seasonal, weather, those capacity networks become constrained. We talked a little bit about the regional imbalance, the longer repositioning, the tighter coverage windows on specific lanes. Those all layer into additional costs.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, disruption is disruption, and it's not free.
Right. It's less about rates broadly moving up across the entire market. It's just the network becoming less forgiving when the market gets out of balance.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And Reddy, what I'd like to do is we know that products get in the hands of consumers in a lot of different ways, right? Some of it is in full truckload, some of it is in LTL, some of it is in parcel or small pack. Talk to me a little bit about some of the signals or some of the things to look out for in each of those modes. And I'll tee you through them one at a time because I know I just gave you a mouthful. But I think you talked about truckload a little bit. Anything you want to add to that before we kind of move downhill a little bit on size?
Yeah, just again, structurally soft, high disruption sensitivity. Shippers should watch lead times and coverage in weather exposed lanes.
For sure. And you know, I know I said we'd pull this off and go small pack and LTL, but I want to talk about some of the other pieces in truckload too. Talk to me about reefer and some of the refrigerated freight. I want to make sure the listeners know what I'm actually talking about when I say reefer, but let's talk about refrigerated freight and how that might be impacted.
Yeah, refrigerated has always been the most reactive equipment type. Seasonal demand and weather can pull capacity out quickly, and that tends to flow over into the dry van space as well.
Okay. And let's stay with truckload a little bit longer, but let's talk about drayage and define for everybody what drayage actually is, and then let's talk about how it's impacted right now.
Yeah, drayage is primarily the movement of goods in and around ports. Drayage is honestly very stable. One thing that we should be watching is the port velocity and regional regulatory pressures, especially in Southern California. That typically is your key port to watch as things change.
Yeah, for sure. And I know there were little cheats and tweaks and with different port access, you know, was it free trade zones, all those little things. Some of that's sort of off the table now. Right now, it's just where's the freight coming into, you know, the roulette of tariffs and all the
right. It's
the things
back to
around
just selecting which port makes the most sense.
Yep. Well, I mean, does that make it easier for you, Ratty, or does that make it more challenging?
It's definitely challenging in some ways, but easier in others. Again, Southern California is the port to watch. When Southern California tightens up, that makes our job a lot harder.
Yeah, for sure. I still remember back post-COVID when you look at a map of Long Beach and what's going on out in the waters out there look like the old battleship game.
Oh, yeah.
We used to play.
Oh, yeah. That was a sight, wasn't it?
Absolutely. And I know that freight being positioned differently, nearshoring, a lot of other strategies that have come into to be stronger in logistics in the last few years. So talk to me about what's going on in cross-border right now.
Cross-border has been actually very strong. A ton of produce, ton of automotive coming from the south. But the execution complexity at the border continues to kind of separate strong networks versus just the average ones. We've been leaning very heavily in on cross-border, and it's been a blast to build that network out.
Yeah, I love it. Do you mind if I challenge you a little bit there, Ratty, and say what is it that makes a strong cross-border network?
It's building relationships. You need, if we're talking about cross-border Mexico, for example, you need the intra-Mexico relationships. You need the warehouse cross-border relationships, and then you need the domestic relationships. Tying all three of those moves into one and doing it the right way makes a great network versus an average network.
Love it. So now let's take this. We've talked about the truckload and all the different components and pieces of that. Let's move the size of these loads downhill a little bit. Let's talk about LTL and what's going on in the LTL world right now.
Yeah, in LTL, carriers are staying disciplined on pricing despite the excess capacity. Right now, their main focus tends to be on yield protection and accessorial enforcement.
Okay. And is that, I know a lot of things happened last year in terms of adjustments to freight classes, everything being a little bit more density-based even than it had been in the past. Right. You see that sort of stabilizing now? People are getting their arms around it, understanding it more?
Yeah, 100%. When that first rolled out, obviously it was something new for everyone. Everyone had to get through the learning curve. But from my point of view right now, it's stabilized. Everybody just kind of understands the new norm.
Yeah, I like it. And let's move down one more size. Now we'll get to the extra smalls, and let's talk about parcel, small pack, whatever you want to
Yeah,
call it.
parcel is shifting more from a base rate focus to total cost management, right? DIM surcharges, network design tend to matter more than just kind of some of the headline GRIs that we've been seeing. In parcel, you're often paying for how you're often not paying, excuse me, for how heavy the box is. You're paying for how big the box
Yeah.
is. And funny story on my end, I learned that the hard way. I was shipping golf clubs, and I was too worried about how heavy they were versus the type of packaging, and I got hit pretty hard on it. Now,
Oh,
the nice thing is that there's companies out there that specialize in that now, so I don't have to worry about that.
did the clubs get there eventually, right?
They
You
got
it.
eventually there for double what I thought from
Yeah.
a price standpoint.
Did somehow you paying more improve your game? Are you a better player now?
No, I think it actually went the opposite way.
That's not good at all. Well, we know a little bit about all the modes now, and I want to make sure that we talk about some takeaways that we can give to either the shipper, even your friends on the capacity side. What would you like to make as a key takeaway for this month that might help the listeners a bit?
Yeah, for this month and kind of Q1 in general, one of my biggest takeaways and that I'll be watching is inventory behavior. If restocking picks up meaningfully, that's one of the most credible catalysts for a real freight demand shift. Until then, I expect continued volatility pockets driven more by disruption and positioning rather than a broad demand strength.
And I am going to pull your crystal ball out a little bit here, and let's look at as we move forward. I know sometimes it's your guess is as good as mine. We have to see what the market does. But is there anything that's giving you a good lean for what you see out ahead of you?
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of momentum. Again, we talked about this a little bit earlier, is there's been enough capacity that's come out of the market that anytime that there is a demand shift or a seasonal shift, weather, you see that market just spike, right? It becomes harder to move freight. Those are kind of signals that we're right there. Obviously, we need a catalyst to move into a more of an inflationary market. But I tend to be more bullish on 2026 than 2025.
Okay.
But at some point we'll be right.
Yeah. If we wait long enough, we'll be right. Right.
Right.
What is it? It's like Groundhog Day. Let's pull out the groundhog and see if we're going to have 2 more weeks of constrained capacity, or are we going to have
Right.
free sailing? I like it. So we got a lot of good information today. I'll add just a couple more thoughts, if you don't mind, Ratty.
Sure.
Is I think right now, one of the things that's important, especially based on everything that you just shared with me, is that we measure everything that we can, and that we are looking at units of product that needs to get in the hands of consumers agnostically on mode, because all of the modes have pros and cons, and making sure you're positioning your freight in a good way, making sure inventory is where it belongs, making sure that you're setting the appropriate volumes, and really examining and learning what the true landed cost, what does it really cost to put the product in your hands of your customers. If you're not measuring that now, find somebody who can. I might know a guy, somebody sitting in front of me that can help us out a bit. And we look forward to talking to you about this again next month. Before I let you go, Ratty, it's been a while, so since I kidnapped you today and brought you in here, I know you've done this for a few minutes, and you've had experience on the asset side, and you've had experience on the 3PL side. So I want to hear at least one crazy story of either loads or booking loads in your background, because I know there's got to be some in there.
I have a lot of crazy stories.
Any that are legal to discuss on our show?
Yes. I have to say, one of the craziest moments for me was during COVID, right when COVID was starting and everybody got sent home. We're trying to figure out how to continue to move freight for customers from our house, right? This was the first time, and I remember at that time I was in a 2-bedroom apartment with my wife, and I'm in the spare bedroom that now I've created into an office. I had no room to actually build an office in there, and it's midnight, and she just hears me on the phone, and I'm helping our team cover freight, and we're moving truckloads of toilet paper. We have 100 trucks in line. It's chaotic. It's midnight, and I just remember my wife opening the door and saying, "What the heck is going on in there? It's so loud." And at that moment, I just paused, and I was like, "Oh my God, I'm gonna have to explain to her that I'm sitting here at midnight covering truckloads of toilet paper. She's going to look at me like I'm insane.
Yeah.
So that was actually one of the funnier moments that her and I kind of got to share in my line of work.
I got to say, Ratty, back in those days when that toilet paper capacity was a big issue, I'm sure you had some people probably trying to call in and get some of those inside tips on where that next load was going to land.
We knew where the toilet paper was, that's for sure.
That's something you put on your business card right on LinkedIn. I know where the TP's at. Hey, thanks everybody for listening. Ratty, thanks for being here to coach us up and let us know what's going on in the market, and we'll see you next month. Thanks,
Awesome.
folks.
Thank you for having me. See you next month.